Hey everyone, it's Ron Carpenito, Keller Williams Prime Property Team, and it's time for the weekly update on what's happening with the coronavirus and how it relates to housing and how it's impacting our housing market and you. We want to be your voice of value through this process, so if there's something you're looking to learn or you're nervous about or you have a concern about, please reach out to us, private message us. We'll try to find the answers together and get you some great advice for insight and decision making. So a couple things. First, I'm a little excited because we basically have a complete month of data now for March that we can kind of compare to last year at this time and give you an idea just how significantly coronavirus situation is affecting real estate. So the first thing that we're tracking, and we use a few different sources to get this information, are what's called showing requests. Okay, these are people making a request to see a property. Well, for the month of March, we are at the moment off 57.9%. 57.9% versus last year at this time nationwide. So that's a very broad data set. The entire nation off 57.9%. That's very telling. That's showing that there are some states that actually aren't practicing any real estate at all. There's other states that are still working but a reduced interest because of what's happening. Locally here in New England, and when we talk New England, we're looking at New Hampshire, Maine, Connecticut, Massachusetts. We see New Hampshire off 22.6%. We see Maine off 51.3%, and we see Connecticut off 59%. Connecticut's really slowing down showing-wise, and I believe they're on a virtual complete lockdown on real estate. Massachusetts, we had a flu outbreak last year that kind of slowed down showing requests around this time last year anyways. So I'm getting somewhat conflicting data points on the Massachusetts showing requests, but I'm basically going to call it down around 25 to 30% versus last year at this time. So needless to say, Massachusetts down, not down as bad as the country as a whole, but we are definitely slowing down. Another big metric we're tracking is listing inventory. How many homes are actually coming on the market? And we can see that for the month of March, we are down 10% versus last year at this time. And that might sound like a low number, but I want to remind you that the first 2 weeks of this year were actually pretty good weeks. Okay, we've not hit the brunt of the coronavirus news. What's more important is if we dig deeper and look at the past 2 weeks, we can see that the past 2 weeks we are off 32% versus last year past 2 weeks. So the past 2 weeks year over year down 32% in listing inventory, and last week's listing inventory was off 52% versus last year at this time. So we are seeing sellers keeping their homes off the market in an already low inventory climate. We can see it getting even lower. Now let's talk about pendings. Pending sales are meaning a deal got put in place. Two buyer and seller came together, agreed contract, it's a pending deal. What's that look like? Well, the entire month of March off 8.8%, okay? Kind of in line with the listing inventory being down. For the past 2 weeks though, pending sales off 24%. That's year over year. The past 2 weeks are 24% less than last year at this time, the same 2 week period. And week over week, we're off 36.3%. So we clearly can see that the pendings are less, but not as lower as the listing inventory. I will say though, both ships are kind of coming down a bit. We still have high demand for real estate for the buyers who are out there. There's a demand, and the sellers who need to sell, they need to sell. So there's still activity happening. There are still multiple offer situations happening. There's just less buyer competition for each home, but there are less homes out there to compete for. So it's almost, I don't want to say a neutralizing effect, but there is definitely some type of even fall to both sides of the equation. Now, functioning-wise, are we able to continue with real estate? So at this moment in Massachusetts, real estate offices were not technically deemed essential. So all that means is our building must be closed to employees, customers, and business. So we cannot do business at the building. We cannot have customers come in. Agents are working out of their homes. We are still doing business. We are able to meet with buyers and sellers individually. We can be in places with less than 10 people, practice social distancing, things like that. So your real estate agent, unless they've personally chosen or their brokerage firm has decided that they're not going to do business, they are still doing business if you need them. The attorneys and the state have all kind of worked out a roadmap to closing to get through a lot of the different pieces of data that we need to close a transaction. So there is a pathway to close if we are in need of closing and working with people to buy and sell. So that's a positive that's coming together. It's not perfect, but it is a planned pathway to closing. Beyond that, not too much difference to report. Mortgage rates clearly came down again a little bit, average around 3.5% from last week at this time. So we did see a tick down in mortgage rates, and we believe that has something to do with the stock market improvement last week, and perhaps some changes in the bond market causing the mortgage rates to kind of work a little bit more like they should be working. So we're seeing lower interest rates as well. And also an important note, took a webinar with one of our top coaches who had interviewed Lawrence Yun from the National Associations of Realtor, and he had mentioned that a lot of buyers out there, 50% of buyers out there, have no impact to the stock market whatsoever. They're not invested in stocks. They're not following the stock market. What's most important to them is the interest rate. So not everyone is, crying the sky is falling because the stock market is falling. 50% of buyers have no exposure to stocks in their own mind, and they're focused more on the mortgage rates, which is going to keep them in line and in tune with buying a home. And that's what we're saying. As long as you're comfortable with your employment, you have a good outlook on the future, and you're looking to buy a home that is perhaps a 7 to 10 year home to outweigh any mortgage, any real estate cycles, you should be in good shape to take advantage of lower buyer competition at this time. That's it for this week. If you have any questions, we want to be a voice of value to you, want to report on what you are looking to find out about, direct message us, and we'd love to help. Okay, be safe. We're going to get through this. America has gone through many challenges in the past, and we will get through this. I will see you next week. Take care.